This is Caribbean News Desk, your Monday edition. In the headlines, mopping up operations are continuing in the wake of recent violent storms as part of this year's hurricane season. OECS governments are reaching out to the opposition to help stave off the deadly Ebola virus. The Caribbean hopes for a favorable response from the U.S. on Queen Kong. Bahamas police make huge marijuana haul, and we'll have more in this edition of Caribbean News Desk. I'm your host, Anisha Brawl. We begin with the aftermath of Hurricane Gonzalo. Mopping up operations are continuing in Sint Maarten. While most schools and many businesses have reopened, residents in many parts of that territory are without electricity and water. There were 2 reported deaths. Sherry Fowler, a resident of Dutch Sint Maarten, has been moving around that territory and tells us what's the situation since Gonzalo passed there as a tropical storm last Monday.
There's a lot of work going on the streets, for instance, right now. A lot of cleaning and stuff, like vacuuming. They're trying to some areas still don't have water or electricity as yet. Oh, and a lot of boats got damaged too. 38 boats went missing sunk in the lagoon. And some other boats and yachts, they were damaged. So a big disaster here.
What about businesses and schools?
Well, most of the schools we open today. Most of the schools we open today. Businesses, yes, they're working fine.
In Bermuda, buildings, including a hospital, sustained extensive roof damage when the hurricane made landfall with rain and 175-kilometer winds. There were no reports of serious injury or death. Bermuda Royal Gazette reporter Jonathan Bell says the airport has reopened and public transportation routes are being cleared of fallen trees and other debris. He says thousands of persons are still without electricity.
I think the main thing is there's still about 6,000 people out of a total of 36,000 places of electrical customers. There's about 6,000 are still without electricity. Most of the roads seem to be open and running just fine. But there's still work going on connecting people.
Anguillas in many parts of their island are also without power for several days now. The Caribbean Electricity Utility Services Corporation, CARILEC, has decided to dispatch teams to help repair and rebuild electricity networks in a number of territories. CARILEC's executive director is Alison Jean.
The islands of Anguilla as well as Bermuda were seriously hit following the passage of both Faye and Gonzalo. They have requested CARILEC's assistance in the restoration process. As a result, 2 crews from the U.S. Virgin Islands provided a response to the Anguilla's situation, while we're putting together about 5 crews to assist Bermuda.
Guyana's Foreign Minister Caroline Rodrigues-Burkett says she is trying to find out why a Guyanese man was taken off a flight in Antigua. She says neither Antigua and Barbuda nor Jamaica has informed Guyana about the decision to prevent Muslim activist Gerald Perreira from entering Kingston. That's almost identical to Jamaica's refusal to allow Trinidad and Tobago's former coup leader Yasin Abu Bakr from landing in Jamaica. Perreira has told the Caribbean News Desk that he was taken off a Caribbean Airlines flight last Friday because Jamaican authorities had advised that he would not have been allowed entry. He was traveling to Jamaica for the 19th anniversary of the Million Man March that was organized by Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. Mr. Perreira says that such a move runs counter to the spirit of Caricom, and he plans to take legal action as far as the Caribbean Court of Justice.
We're going to go, we'll take it step by step until it reaches the Caribbean Court of Justice. Because I'm a citizen of Caricom. I have never ever committed an act in Jamaica. How could I be a threat to the national security of Jamaica?
But ultimately, Mr. Perreira, why do you think that an eventual complaint to the Guyana or the Jamaican governments will bring a resolution to this matter?
I am not saying it will, but we will go down that path. Because it's a CARICOM national, it goes against the revised treaty of Chagram, and they cannot prevent me from traveling. Because the next thing is, where does it stop? The next thing you know, I can't go to Trinidad, I'm confined to Guyana.
But Foreign Minister Rodrigues-Burkett tells Caribbean News Desk that member states of the Caribbean Community, or CARICOM, do have a right to prevent certain persons from entering their territories.
Let me say, all of our countries in CARICOM, and I guess for others as well, they have that right if they so determine that that person should not be landed for several reasons. So I've asked my staff to check it, but I would imagine Jamaica would inform us as well.
She says that she was a bit taken aback that Mr. Perreira was allowed to leave Guyana. In the Eastern Caribbean, governments there plan to seek political unity as the region seeks to stave off Ebola. Dominica's Health Minister Julius Timothy told reporters in Roseau on Monday that opposition leaders will be engaged on the preparedness of the sub-region to deal with the deadly virus should it arrive.
The OECS Secretariat has agreed that they're going to update all the leaders of the opposition in the islands on what the status is. Because the truth is, we do not want Ebola to be politicized. This thing is too serious, it's too... the consequences is just too disastrous for us to be politicizing it.
In the Bahamas, police have arrested 2 men and seized more than 1,000 pounds of marijuana worth about $1 million. The seizure was made during late Sunday and early Monday as part of Operation Showtime 2. The men and the drugs were aboard a 32-foot-long vessel at sea 1 mile south of New Providence. Police said the suspects will be charged and appear in court later this week. Caribbean firefighters are concerned about the emergence of new chemicals in the region. The president of the Caribbean Firefighters Association, Grantley Green, says there is need for more training in dealing with chemical outbursts. He says a lot of the chemicals are being imported for manufacturing and personal use. Mr. Green says firefighters need updated documentation from the relevant authorities about the type of chemicals that are coming into the Caribbean.
There are some training issues. There are cases where chemicals are entering the Caribbean that we are not fully prepared for. So therefore, we got to be trained to combat some of the chemicals. There are a number of chemicals coming from Europe, UK, but we got to keep upgrading ourselves, basically. We are mostly concentrating on about the hazmat. That is where the chemicals come in. For instance, if we have a major chemical outburst, we, the officers, have a role in trying to contain it.
The Caribbean is early next month expected to know whether the United States will ban imports of Queen Conch following a lobby by an American non-governmental organization. That organization has petitioned the U.S. to list the Queen Conch as an endangered species based on data in the 1990s. Executive Director of the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, CRFM, Milton Horton, is optimistic that the region will not face export restrictions based on new data that shows that the Queen Conch population has improved over the last 10 years.
Now, we have been opposing that petition on the basis that the information that they supplied was outdated, was in many cases just wrong and not suitable. So the matter is still not resolved because we have been able to compile information regarding the state of the Queen Conch in our countries. We have been able to put together information regarding the legislation and the management systems that we have in place, and we have submitted all that to the United States government so that they can take these things into consideration as a part of their review of the petition.
Executive Director of the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, Mr. Milton Horton. Dominica's Health Minister Julius Timothy. You're listening to Caribbean News Desk. Cuban President Raul Castro on Monday announced that 2 health brigades from the island will be dispatched to Liberia and Guinea-Conakry early this week to collaborate in the fight against the Ebola epidemic. The Cuban leader made the announcement at the inauguration in Havana of the extraordinary summit being held by the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of America, or ALBA, to coordinate efforts to combat and halt the spread of the disease. The Spanish news agency Agencia FA reported that Cuban Health Minister Roberto Morales said at the ALBA meeting on Tuesday that Cuba will send 53 healthcare workers to Liberia and 38 to Guinea-Conakry. In Sierra Leone, one of the African nations that has been most severely affected by Ebola, a group of 165 Cuban health professionals has been treating Ebola patients since early October. Port workers in Martinique's capital, Fort-de-France, went on strike on Monday to protest potential health threats from an industrial waste processing facility in the port. The Spanish news agency Agencia FA reported that the workers want port management to address the spread of metal dust, as well as visual contamination, bad odor, and the noise generated by operations at a metal dump facility. The workers' stoppage began early Monday as strikers picketed outside the port and near the sprawling metal dump complex. Venezuela imports light crude oil to dilute heavy crude from the Orinoco Belt that cannot be produced or transported without first being mixed with a hydrocarbon of lower density. The country's state-owned oil giant PDVSA said Monday that the use of light crude is being used to achieve a more profitable blend. The importation of crude was agreed to with France's Total and Norway's Statoil, who are PDVSA's partners in Petrocedeño, a joint venture that produces and improves the quality of oil at one of the wells in the Orinoco Belt. Two-time opposition presidential candidate and Miranda Governor Enrique Capriles has labeled the purchase of light crude abroad unbelievable. The Orinoco Belt, located in east-central Venezuela, is believed to hold the world's largest petroleum reserves, with most of the oil-heavy and extra-heavy crude that is more expensive to refine because it requires additional processing. Still in Venezuela, the Nicolas Maduro administration plans to include radars sensitive to gunfire and drones equipped with video cameras to help fight crime. Interior Minister Miguel Rodriguez has announced that the devices will be put into operation starting in April 2015. He said 50,000 cameras installed will monitor spaces with high concentration of people with the aim of strengthening public safety. Rodriguez said that the cameras on the unmanned aircraft will be integrated into the 911 emergency telephone system, just like a number of radars for the detection of gunfire. He also said that special equipment to block cell phone calls in prisons, where it has been determined that criminal leaders are extorting citizens via bands of thugs on the outside, will be purchased abroad. Rodriguez noted that recently the government made available to the public a cell phone application that provides a permanent connection to the closest police force, something that has helped to reduce crime. And that's Caribbean News Desk. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dennis Chabrol.